Week one of the NFL season is in the books, and with it comes one of the biggest waiver wire runs for dynasty leagues. And so, this video series moving forward, I'm gonna try to deliver it to you every Monday to give you deep dynasty roster ads. And so, the threshold that we're going to use for it is 50% rostership on sleeper leagues, players that fall underneath that. And so, a big thing that we're going to look for is players that create injury situations or maybe emerge from ambiguous situations. The first one this week is going to be Justice Hill from the Baltimore Ravens, and Justice Hill has created value because of the unfortunate injury to J.K. Dobbins. Gus Edwards has value in that Ravens backfield as well, but he is sits above that threshold. He's a 76% rostership, and many assume that he would be the primary backup. But Hill came in and received 2 goal line touches. He was able to convert for touchdowns, and he is the better receiver option. So that creates a scenario where they're certainly going to use a split backfield. But if Hill is getting the higher leverage opportunities, both within the passing game and at the goal line, he's going to be your play that you're going to want moving forward. A big one to keep in mind here is Keaton Mitchell. And that Keaton Mitchell was an undrafted free agent. He's sitting on IR right now. He's a great play this week if you have an IR spot and if he is available, because you can pick him up, stash him in IR, and then maybe look at secondary waivers, players that might have gotten dropped or maybe players that have kind of moved through. But Mitchell brings a different element to this backfield, an element that's lacking both from Hill and Edwards, in that he is a speed merchant. He's very fast. He can contribute in the passing game, and he brings a home run threat. Baltimore, too, might step into being players for Jonathan Taylor now, because J.K. Dobbins' future with that Achilles injury, there's serious doubt on that, whether or not he's going to be a part of the organization moving forward. That could position themselves to get aggressive, add Jonathan Taylor to a roster that they think is capable of contending for the Super Bowl. Next one is going to be Josh Reynolds from the Detroit Lions. And the reason why I like Reynolds is, well, one, we've seen production. He had 80 receiving yards in the first outing. Through weeks 3 through 5 last year, he was averaging 9 targets, 6 receptions, and 89 yards. And so we've seen him produce before. He goes back with Jared Goff to 2017 when Reynolds was a rookie with the Rams. They've moved through organizations together. There is a high comfort level there. He might be a forgotten player because he played on Thursday night. He didn't score a touchdown or anything like that. And so much bigger, kind of flashier names have emerged. Everybody's kind of had Josh Reynolds on their roster before. And so, but moving forward, I think he's going to be very involved in that Lions receiver room because of his size. He brings a different element from Amon-Ra St. Brown, or when Jameson Williams returns from his 6-game suspension, now 5-game suspension. Reynolds could have a role moving forward, and especially there could be some red zone utility in that role. And God forbid if Amon-Ra St. Brown or somebody else were to miss some time for an opportunity, he's going to be a major reliable receiver for Jared Goff. Now, speaking of the Rams, the next one's going to be a Rams wide receiver, Tutu Atwell. He's 47% rostered in Sleeper. That is a player to target. He missed his rookie season. We saw that he was a second-round pick, and there was kind of some consternation around that pick because of his size. Injury robbed his rookie season. His second season, he started out on IR, so he missed a fair amount of time with Matthew Stafford. He's only received 4 targets from Matthew Stafford up until this game, and he had a massive game against the Seahawks. They really relied on Atwell, and they relied on Puka Nacua, who is going to be above your roster thresholds here. But Atwell kind of slips through, 47% rostered, over 110 yards. His speed brings a needed element into that Rams offense, something different from everybody else they have in that room. He can attack vertically, but they can also get the ball in his hands and allow him to create. So that's a player that I think he's going to be very involved moving forward, especially with the questions around Cooper Kupp and his injury return. Tight end Durham Smythe from Miami. He's 9% sleeper rostered. And I think we all knew that Durham Smythe was going to be on the field for the Dolphins, but there were major questions about if he would actually be involved. But we saw in week 1, and that was a shootout with the Chargers. He did receive 7 targets, caught 3 of them for 44 yards. Tight end's been decimated across the fantasy landscape, and Durham Smythe gives you a very, very low entry point into a very explosive Miami offense. And so that's a player to add, especially if you've got any level of tight end premium on your leagues that could kind of create a little bit more value. But he's a player that add to your end of your benches. He might be forgotten about because he didn't score a lot of points this week, but we know he's going to be on the field. And if that role grows, if he becomes a trusted target for Tua Tagovailoa, that has a big ceiling there to return value. Calvin Austin from Pittsburgh is another player that, one, he had the injury to Deontay Johnson that opened up opportunity, but two, he was a rookie that missed last year, similar to Atwell, and kind of landed. He was a 4th-round pick, landed in that mid tier. There are questions about his overall utility, but he's like Atwell's got speed to attack vertically, and he's comfortable operating with the ball in his hands. You can use him as an extension of the run game. Deontay Johnson's expected to miss a couple of weeks with that injury. So Austin had 6 targets against the 49ers, caught all 6 of those, gained only 37 yards. But that's a player that he can kind of lock down that third wide receiver role, even when Johnson returns. And so that creates a lot of value. Only 47% rostered on Sleeper. So take a look there. Kendrick Bourne from New England. He's 30% sleeper rostered. And that's another player similar to Josh Reynolds, where it's kind of that boring vet. He's not that exciting young player, but there is so much ambiguity around the Patriots wide receiver targets. And so Bourne had 11 targets in that first game, 27% or 20% target share. There are big questions about who is going to be that primary number 1 wide receiver. And we saw the rest of the targets there kind of land between 5 to 7 targets, topping out at 7, while Bourne had 11. Bourne goes back with Mac Jones to Mac Jones' rookie year 2 years ago. He's been with the Patriots organization over the last couple of years. He had a little bit of a mini breakout at certain points throughout his career, but he's never been able to stack it all together. 2 touchdowns against the Eagles. So he's going to be on the primary radar for a lot of people because he had a big fantasy game. But moving forward, he can be that primary receiver for the Patriots, and that creates a lot of value there. And so some of these veteran wide receivers that I flashed back last year to Matt Collins was kind of a player that, yeah, he had big games to start the season, and people didn't really buy in there, but we saw him return that value and become a consistent wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4 towards the end of your benches. And in some of these veteran wide receiver situations, that's what we're looking for. We're not looking for God forbid the roster clogger. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants that roster clogger in Dynasty. But I think Bourne has the opportunity to be even more for that. Only 30% rostered in Sleeper. The last one is a little bit more of a speculative play, and it's just talking about an injury situation that hit the Green Bay Packers. Aaron Jones is questionable about whether he's going to be ready to go week 2. Patrick Taylor got some run to close that game out. And so Patrick Taylor is a player to keep an eye on for the Packers. AJ Dillon obviously would step up as the primary back. Dillon struggled against the Bears, only 19 yards on 13 carries. Taylor is an established vet. He's 25-year-old, so he's not this young player that's going to be too exciting. But with Jordan Love stepping in as the Packers quarterback, that creates an opportunity where he can have that more of a veteran presence, as opposed to the rookie Elijah Wilson is another player to keep an eye on, and maybe he gets the opportunity. But again, that's much more of a speculative ad. I think you want to target these other players much more heavily because they are wide receivers that can fill out your roster week to week, or they are players that we know that J.K. Dobbins is unfortunately not going to be available. So make those your priority ads. Add these players to the end of your benches, churn those end of those roster spots, continue to build value, and moving forward, you can create a very strong dynasty team and be ready to take on this season.